8 years ago, he walked away from the only woman he ever loved. Now facing criminal charges that could destroy him, he discovers his fate lies in the hands of the judge he abandoned, and she's about to make a shocking discovery of her own.
Amara, I never thought I'd see you again.
She thought she'd buried the pain of his betrayal. But sitting in that courtroom, one look changed everything, because in the back row sat a 7-year-old girl with his eyes, his smile, his everything.
You left me, Jared. You have no idea what you left behind.
He'd built an empire, but lost the one thing money couldn't buy. Now as the gavel falls and secrets unravel, he must choose between his freedom and his family.
She's mine, isn't she? That little girl, she's our daughter.
When the man who abandoned everything discovers he's a father, and the woman who survived heartbreak holds his destiny in her hands, can love survive the ultimate test?
I won't let you destroy her life the way you destroyed mine.
Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Jared Langston's penthouse apartment. At 30 years old, he had everything money could buy. The view of the Manhattan skyline, the designer suits hanging in his walk-in closet, and a reputation as one of the most successful real estate developers of his generation. Jared stood in front of the mirror adjusting his tie. His reflection showed a handsome man with piercing blue eyes, short brown curls, and the confident smile that had closed countless deals. But this morning, that smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mr. Langston, your lawyer is on the phone," said Maria, his housekeeper, from the doorway. Jared nodded. "Tell him I'll be right there." He took one last look at himself. Today was supposed to be simple, just a preliminary hearing about some paperwork issues with his Dubai project. Nothing he couldn't handle with his team of expensive lawyers. 10 minutes later, he was in the back of his black SUV, scrolling through emails on his phone. "We should be at the courthouse in 15 minutes, Mr. Langston," his driver said. "Perfect. And after the hearing, take me straight to the office. I have meetings all afternoon." Jared barely looked up from his phone. To him, this court appearance was just an inconvenience, a small bump in the road that would soon be forgotten. The courthouse was crowded when Jared arrived. Cameras flashed as he walked up the steps with his attorney, Marcus Webb, beside him. "Remember, this is just a formality," Marcus said quietly. "The judge will hear the basics of the case and we'll be out of here before lunch." Jared nodded, straightening his shoulders. "I've done nothing wrong. Those investors knew the risks." "Of course," Marcus replied, though his eyes betrayed a hint of doubt. "Just let me do the talking." They entered courtroom 7 and took their seats at the defense table. The prosecution was already there. 2 serious-looking attorneys from the Financial Crimes Division. Jared barely gave them a glance. His mind was on the Dubai project and how quickly he could get this legal nonsense behind him. All rise for the Honorable Judge Amara Wells. Jared stood automatically, his eyes on his phone until the last possible moment. When he finally looked up, the world seemed to stop. Walking to the bench was a face he hadn't seen in 8 years, but had never truly forgotten. Amara. Her hair was different now, shorter, framing her face in elegant curls. She wore the black robe of her office with a dignity that took his breath away. Their eyes met for just a moment. In that split second, Jared saw shock flicker across her face before it was quickly replaced by the neutral expression of a judge. "Be seated," she said, her voice steady and professional. Jared couldn't move. Marcus had to tug at his sleeve to get him to sit down. "What's wrong?" Marcus whispered. "I know her," Jared replied, his voice barely audible. Before Marcus could respond, Judge Wells began speaking. "We're here for the preliminary hearing in the case of United States versus Jared Langston regarding allegations of securities fraud in connection with the Palm Heights development in Dubai." She spoke with authority, not once looking directly at Jared. Anyone watching would never have guessed they had a history, but they did have a history. 8 years ago, they had been law students together. Amara, brilliant and beautiful, had captured his heart in a way no one else ever had. They had been so in love, or at least he thought they had been, until he'd chosen his career over her, leaving for Dubai without even saying goodbye. As the prosecution began outlining their case, Jared couldn't focus on the words. His eyes kept drifting to Amara. To Judge Wells, he corrected himself. She was poised, professional, and completely unreachable. Then a movement at the back of the courtroom caught his eye. An older black woman had entered quietly and taken a seat in the last row. Beside her was a little girl about 7 years old, with light brown skin and curly hair. The girl was coloring in a book, occasionally looking up at the proceedings with curious eyes. There was something familiar about her. Something in the shape of her face, the curve of her smile when the older woman leaned down to whisper something to her. And then the little girl looked up and smiled fully, revealing a dimple in her right cheek, exactly like the one Jared saw in the mirror every day. His heart stopped. His hands gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. The little girl looked exactly like him. "Mr. Langston?" Judge Wells's voice cut through his shock. "Your counsel has been asked a question." Jared turned back to face the bench, his mind racing. It couldn't be. It couldn't possibly be what he was thinking. But the timing. If Amara had been pregnant when he left— "I apologize, Your Honor," Marcus said smoothly, covering for Jared's distraction. "Could the prosecution repeat the question?" As the hearing continued, Jared tried to focus, but his eyes kept drifting back to the little girl. She was now reading a book, her small fingers tracing the words on the page, just like Amara used to do when they studied together. After what seemed like an eternity, Judge Wells spoke again. "The court finds sufficient cause to proceed with this case. The formal arraignment will take place 2 weeks from today on the 24th. Until then, Mr. Langston will surrender his passport, but may otherwise remain free on his own recognizance." She banged her gavel once. "Court is adjourned." As she stood to leave, her eyes met Jared's for just a moment longer than necessary. In that look was a warning, clear as day, to stay away. But Jared couldn't. Not now. Not with the questions burning inside him. As everyone began to file out, he watched the older woman take the little girl's hand and lead her toward a side door, the same door through which Judge Wells had disappeared. "Jared, we need to talk about what just happened." "In there," Marcus said, tugging at his sleeve. "The judge set an unusually quick date for the arraignment. We need to prepare." "Who is that little girl?" Jared asked, ignoring his lawyer's concerns. Marcus looked confused. "What little girl?" "The one who was sitting in the back with the older woman, the one who just left through that door." Jared was already moving, trying to follow them. "I don't know. Why does it matter?" "Jared, we have serious issues to discuss about your case." But Jared was already halfway across the courtroom. He reached the side door just as a court officer stepped in front of it. "This area is restricted, sir," the officer said firmly. "I need to speak with Judge Wells," Jared insisted. "It's personal and urgent." "The judge doesn't see defendants outside of court proceedings," the officer replied, unmoved. "If you have a matter to discuss, you can file the appropriate motions through your attorney." Jared stood there, frustrated and overwhelmed. After a moment, he nodded and turned away. But he wasn't giving up. Not by a long shot. That evening, Jared sat in his penthouse, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. His phone showed dozens of missed calls from Marcus and other members of his legal team, but he couldn't bring himself to answer any of them. All he could think about was Amara. And that little girl. He pulled out his laptop and did what he should have done years ago. He searched for information about Amara Wells. There she was, articles about her appointment to the bench 2 years earlier, mentions of her work as a prosecutor before that, pictures of her at legal conferences, and then he found it, a small community newsletter article about a local school event. There was a photo of Amara with a younger version of the little girl he'd seen today. The caption read, "Judge Amara Wells and daughter Lena at Springfield Elementary School's reading competition." Lena. Her name was Lena. Jared's hands shook as he calculated the timing. If Lena was 7 now, and he'd left 8 years ago. Amara must have been pregnant when he walked away. He had a daughter he never knew existed. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He'd walked away from Amara for his career, and in doing so, he'd also abandoned his own child. A child who had grown up without him, who probably didn't even know who he was. His phone rang again. Marcus, for the 10th time. Jared finally answered. "I can't talk about the case right now," he said before Marcus could speak. "This isn't just about the case anymore," Marcus replied, his voice tense. "I've been doing some digging since you seemed so rattled in court today. Judge Wells should have recused herself from your case if she knew you personally. This could be grounds for—" "No," Jared cut him off. Firmly. "We are not using this, not against her. Jared, be reasonable. Your freedom is at stake here. If there's a conflict of interest—" "I said no, Marcus. Find another way." Jared ended the call and tossed his phone aside. He spent the rest of the night pacing his apartment, thinking about everything he'd missed. First steps, first words, first day of school. All the moments that could never be reclaimed. By morning, he knew what he had to do. The next day, Jared went to his office and cleared his schedule. His assistant, Vanessa, looked at him with concern. "Are you sure, Mr. Langston? You have the meeting with the Chinese investors at 2. Cancel it. Cancel everything for the next few days." He sat at his desk and took out a pen and paper. For hours, he wrote and rewrote a letter to Amara, not as Judge Wells, but as the woman he had once loved, the woman he had hurt deeply. He wrote about his regrets, his shock at seeing her again, and the overwhelming realization that he had a daughter. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He knew he didn't deserve it. He simply asked for a chance to talk, outside the courtroom, away from their professional roles. After sealing the letter in an envelope, he called a courier service. "Deliver this to Judge Amara Wells at the Manhattan County Courthouse. It's personal, not related to any case." With the letter sent, all he could do was wait. Amara Wells sat in her chambers, staring at the unopened envelope on her desk. She recognized Jared's handwriting immediately. Some things you never forget, even after 8 years. Her hand hovered over it, uncertain. She should send it back unopened. She should recuse herself from his case immediately. That would be the professional thing to do, but nothing about this situation was just professional. Not when it involved Lena. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, quickly sliding the envelope into her drawer. Her assistant, Patricia, entered. "Your aunt called. She's picking up Lena from school today and taking her to piano lessons." "Thank you," Amara replied. "And can you bring me the Hendricks file? I need to review it before tomorrow's hearing." After Patricia left, Amara took out the envelope again. With a deep breath, she tore it open and began to read. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. 8 years of raising a child alone, of building a career while being both mother and father, of explaining to Lena why she didn't have a dad like other kids, and now he wanted to talk. She wiped away her tears angrily. She had cried enough. Over Jared Langston. She'd cried when he disappeared without a word. She'd cried when she discovered she was pregnant. She'd cried during those endless nights of morning sickness, knowing she was completely on her own. But she had stopped crying. Years ago, she had built a life for herself and Lena, a good life, filled with love and accomplishment. And now here he was, walking back into her courtroom as if fate itself had a twisted sense of humor. Amara picked up her phone and called her Aunt Teresa, the woman who had helped raise her after her parents died and who had been her rock throughout her pregnancy and Lena's early years. "He knows," she said without preamble when her aunt answered. There was a pause on the other end. "You told him?" "No, but he saw Lena in the courtroom yesterday. He's written me a letter." "What are you going to do?" Teresa asked gently. Amara sighed. "The right thing, professionally, is to recuse myself from his case. And personally, I don't." "No," Amara admitted. "Lena has been asking more questions about her father lately. I've always told her he wasn't ready to be a dad, that it wasn't her fault. But now he's here," Teresa finished for her. "And you have to decide if you're going to let him into Lena's life." "How can I trust him?" He left without a word. Aunt Teresa. No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. Just disappeared to Dubai like what we had meant nothing. People change, Amara. Do they? Or do they just get better at hiding who they really are? Amara's voice was bitter. "He's facing fraud charges, for heaven's sake." "You haven't heard his side yet," Teresa reminded her. "Not that it excuses what he did, but there might be more to the story." Amara was silent for a long moment. "Lena deserves to know her father," she finally said. "But I need to protect her too. I won't let him waltz into her life just to disappear again when things get tough. So, what will you do?" "I'll recuse myself from his case tomorrow. And then," Amara took a deep breath, "then I'll meet with him, just once, to lay down the law, so to speak." After hanging up, Amara took out a fresh sheet of paper and began to write her own letter. Her words were careful, measured, the words of a judge, not a former lover. She would meet him, but on her terms, at a public café during her lunch break, for exactly 30 minutes. She sealed the envelope and called Patricia to have it delivered to Jared's office. Then she turned back to her work, trying to focus on the cases before her rather than the past that had suddenly crashed into her present. But her eyes kept drifting to the framed photo on her desk, Lena at her 7th birthday party, blowing out candles, her curls so like her father's, her smile so bright and trusting. "I'll protect you," Amara whispered to the photo, "no matter what." Jared received Amara's response the next morning. Her handwriting was as neat and precise as he remembered. He read the short note twice, memorizing the time and place she had set for their meeting. Tomorrow at noon. 30 minutes. A café 2 blocks from the courthouse. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A chance to explain, to apologize, to begin, to make amends for 8 years of absence. He spent the day preparing for that meeting, thinking about what to say, how to say it. Nothing seemed adequate. How do you apologize for missing 7 years of your child's life? How do you explain walking away from the only woman you ever truly loved? That night, he found himself looking at old photos, pictures from law school, from the brief 2 years he and Amara had been together. Her smile so genuine and warm, the way she looked at him as if he were somehow better than he knew himself to be. In one photo, they were at a friend's birthday party. Amara was laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back, her hand on his arm. He remembered that moment, the feeling that he could do anything, be anyone, as long as she was by his side. What a fool he had been to throw that away. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Marcus again. "The judge has recused herself from your case," Marcus said without preamble. "They're assigning Judge Thompson to take over." "I know," Jared replied quietly. There was a pause. "You know. How could you know already?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that we focus on the case. I told you not to use my history with Judge Wells against her, and I meant it." "I didn't," Marcus said, sounding offended. "She recused herself voluntarily, but Jared, what's going on? You've been distracted since that hearing." Jared sighed. "It's personal, Marcus, very personal. I'll fill you in when I can. But for now, just focus on preparing our defense." After hanging up, Jared returned to the photos. In one, Amara was studying, surrounded by law books, her brow furrowed in concentration. He remembered taking that picture, how she'd looked up and smiled at him, how they'd talked about their future plans, her dream of becoming a judge someday, his ambition to build an international real estate empire. Somehow, they had both achieved those dreams. But at what cost? Tomorrow he would face Amara, not as Judge Wells, but as the woman he had wronged, the mother of his child. And he had no idea if she would ever forgive him or if he would ever have a chance to know his daughter or lie. He knew was that nothing, not his business, not his freedom, not anything, mattered more than making things right with them, even if it took the rest of his life. The cafe Amara had chosen was busy with the lunch crowd when Jared arrived. He was 15 minutes early, too anxious to wait in his office any longer. He selected a table near the back where they could talk with some privacy, but still be in public view. His heart pounded as he waited. 8 years since he had spoken to her. 8 years since he had walked away without a word. And now he was about to face not just his past, but the consequences of his choices. At exactly noon, Amara walked through the door. She wore a navy blue suit, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Even in her professional attire, she was breathtaking. Several heads turned as she moved through the cafe, her posture perfect, her expression composed. Jared stood as she approached his table. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. Amara didn't smile. I have 30 minutes, she replied, taking a seat. That's all. A waitress came over, but Amara waved her away. I'm not staying long enough for coffee. When they were alone again, silence fell between them. There was so much Jared wanted to say, but now that she was sitting across from him, words failed him. Finally, Amara spoke. I've recused myself from your case, as I'm sure you know by now. Judge Thompson will be taking over. He's fair but strict. I didn't come here to talk about my case, Jared said. Then why did you want to meet? She looked directly at him, her brown eyes guarded. You know why. Jared leaned forward. The little girl in the courtroom, she's my daughter, isn't she? Amara's hands tightened around her purse. Yes, Lena is your daughter. Even though he had known it from the moment he saw her, hearing Amara confirm it made Jared's world tilt. He had a child, a 7-year-old little girl who had been living and growing all these years without him. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, quietly. Fire flashed in Amara's eyes. Tell you? How exactly was I supposed to do that, Jared? You disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone. I tried calling, I tried emailing. Nothing. I know, he admitted. I was wrong. So wrong. Wrong doesn't even begin to cover it. Amara's voice was low but intense. Do you have any idea what it was like? Finding out I was pregnant? 2 weeks after you vanished. Finishing law school with morning sickness so bad I could barely get through classes. Building a career while raising a child on my own. Jared shook his head. No, I don't. And I can never make up for that. But Amara, if I had known... You would have what? She challenged. Come back? Sent money? What would you have done, Jared? I would have been there, he insisted. For both of you. Amara laughed, but there was no humor in it. The way you were. There when we were planning our future together. The way you were there when I told you I loved you. She shook her head. You left for a business deal, Jared. You chose money over me. Why would I believe you would have chosen differently for Lena? Her words cut deep, because he knew they were true. 8 years ago, nothing had mattered more to him than success. Not love, not loyalty, not even basic decency. I'm not the same person I was then, he said softly, aren't you? You're facing fraud charges, Jared. That doesn't exactly suggest a moral awakening. The charges are based on technicalities, not intentional wrongdoing, he replied. But that's not important right now. What's important is Lena. He took a deep breath. Does she know about me? Amara's expression softened slightly. She knows. She has a father who wasn't ready to be a dad. I've never lied to her, but I've never told her your name either. I didn't want her growing up Googling you, seeing your success, wondering why it was more important than she was. The truth of those words hit Jared like a physical blow. I want to meet her, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I want to be part of her life. That's not your decision to make, Amara replied firmly. Lena is happy, well-adjusted and loved. I won't let you waltz in and disrupt her life just to ease your conscience. This isn't about easing my conscience, Jared protested. She's my daughter. Biologically, yes. But being a father is more than DNA, Jared. It's being there every day through fevers and nightmares and school projects and scraped knees. Amara's voice cracked slightly. It's explaining to a 4-year-old why other kids have daddies and she doesn't. Jared felt tears prick at his eyes. I want to try, he said simply. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've missed so much. But please, Amara, give me a chance to know her. Amara looked at her watch. My 30 minutes are almost up. Please, Jared repeated. She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face as if searching for something. Finally, she sighed. I'll think about it. That's all I can promise right now. Thank you, he said, relief washing over him. That's more than I deserve. Amara stood to leave, then paused. Why did you do it, Jared? Why did you leave like that? The question he had been dreading, the truth he had never told anyone. The Dubai opportunity wasn't just about ambition, he said slowly. My father was in serious financial trouble. He had gambled away everything. His savings, his business, even my college fund. He was facing criminal charges for some desperate moves he'd made to cover his debts. Amara's expression registered surprise. She slowly sat back down. "You never told me that." "I was ashamed," Jared admitted. "My father had always been my hero. Finding out he was a gambling addict who had committed fraud, I couldn't face it. And I couldn't face telling you that the man you'd met, the man you thought was this successful businessman, was actually broke and possibly headed to prison. So the Dubai job was to help him?" Jared nodded. "They paid me enough up front to cover his debts, but the condition was I had to leave immediately. No delays, no loose ends." "I was a loose end?" Amara's voice was soft but hurt. "No," Jared shook his head. "You were everything, and I was a coward. I told myself it would be easier for you if I just disappeared, that you deserved better than a man with my family's problems. That was a lie, of course. The truth is, I was too ashamed to face you, too. Afraid of losing your respect." He looked down at his hands. "So I ran, and it was the biggest mistake of my life." Amara was silent, processing his words. "Your father, is he—" "He died 3 years ago," Jared said. "Heart attack. He never did get his life together, even after I bailed him out." Another pause. "I'm sorry for your loss," she finally said. "Thank you." Jared looked up at her. "But I lost more than my father, Amara. I lost you, and I lost years with my daughter that I can never get back." Amara stood again, this time more slowly. "I really do have to get back to court, but—" She hesitated. "I'll call you. We need to figure out how to handle this situation with Lena." "Whatever you think is best," Jared said. "I'll follow your lead." As she turned to leave, he called after her. "Amara," she looked back. "Thank you for raising her, for being strong when I was weak." A ghost of a smile touched her lips, and then she was gone, leaving Jared alone with the weight of everything he had missed and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, he could begin to make things right. When Amara returned to her chambers that afternoon, she found her Aunt Teresa waiting for her. "I brought you lunch since I figured you'd skip it," Teresa said, gesturing to a paper bag on the desk. "I had a meeting," Amara replied, setting down her briefcase. "With him?" Teresa's eyes were knowing. Amara nodded, sinking into her chair. "He wants to meet Lena." "And what do you want?" "I don't know," Amara admitted. "Part of me wants to protect her from ever feeling the pain of abandonment that I felt. But another part knows a girl needs her father," Teresa finished for her. "He told me why he left," Amara said quietly. "His father was in financial trouble, criminal trouble. Jared took the Dubai job to bail him out." Teresa raised an eyebrow. "Do you believe him?" "Strangely, yes. It fits with things I remember, calls he would take in private, his tension whenever his father was mentioned." Amara sighed. "But it doesn't change the fact that he chose not to tell me, not to trust me. He made that decision for both of us. People make mistakes, Amara, especially young people in love who are scared." Amara looked at her aunt sharply. "Are you defending him?" Teresa smiled gently. "No, honey. I'm just saying that life is rarely black and white, and that little girl deserves to know her daddy, flaws and all. What if he disappoints her? What if he walks away again? Then you'll be there for her, just like you've always been." Teresa reached across the desk and squeezed Amara's hand. "But what if he doesn't walk away? What if he becomes the father she needs?" Amara's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to open that door, Aunt Teresa, to let him back into our lives, even just as Lena's father." "You're the strongest person I know," Teresa replied. "You got through law school while pregnant and alone. You raised a beautiful daughter while building a career. You became a judge at an age when most lawyers are still paying off student loans." She smiled. "You can handle Jared Langston." After Teresa left, Amara took out her phone and looked at the photos of Lena, laughing on the swing set, serious in her school uniform, proud with her first lost tooth. In every picture, there were echoes of Jared, in her smile, in the way she tilted her head when curious, in the determined set of her jaw when she faced a challenge. Lena had been asking more questions lately. Why don't I have a dad like Zoe? Where does my curly hair come from? Was my dad nice? Each question had been like a knife to Amara's heart, but she had always answered truthfully, if vaguely. Your dad wasn't ready to be a father. You get your curls from your father's side. Your dad was very smart and charming, but now what would she tell her? That her father was back, that he wanted to meet her, that he was also facing possible prison time for fraud. The thought made Amara's stomach clench. She had worked so hard to create a stable, secure life for Lena, to protect her from exactly the kind of uncertainty that Jared represented. With a deep breath, Amara dialed a number she knew by heart. "Dr. Bennett's office," a friendly voice answered. "This is Judge Wells. I was wondering if Dr. Bennett has any openings this week. It's somewhat urgent." Dr. Bennett had been Amara's therapist for years, helping her through the pain of Jared's abandonment and the challenges of single motherhood. If anyone could help her navigate this situation, it was her. Actually, she had a cancellation tomorrow at 4. Would that work? Yes, that would be perfect. Thank you. After hanging up, Amara turned back to her case files, trying to focus on work rather than the turmoil in her personal life. But her mind kept drifting to Jared's face when he spoke about Lena, the genuine pain, the longing, the regret. Was it possible he had really changed? And even if he had, was it fair to Lena to let him into her life now, after 7 years of absence? These were questions without easy answers. But Amara knew one thing for certain. Whatever decision she made would be based on what was best for Lena, not what was easy for herself or convenient for Jared. The next few days were a blur for Jared. He went through the motions of meetings and conference calls, but his mind was elsewhere. He had instructed his legal team to prepare for his arraignment, but even the possibility of prison time seemed distant and unimportant compared to the revelation that he had a daughter. He found himself researching child development, trying to understand what a 7-year-old would be like. What were her interests, her fears, her dreams? Was she doing well in school? Did she have friends? What books did she read? There were so many questions, so many missing pieces of the puzzle that was Lena's life. And then there was Amara. Seeing her again had awakened feelings he thought he'd buried years ago. She was even more beautiful now, more confident, more dignified. The girl he had loved had become a remarkable woman, without him, despite him. 5 days after their meeting at the café, his phone rang with an unknown number. "Jared Langston," he answered, his heart racing. "It's Amara," came the reply. "I've made a decision about Lena." Jared gripped the phone tighter. "I'm listening." "I've spoken with my therapist and with Lena's pediatrician. They both agree that if, and it's a big if, you're going to be part of her life, it should be done gradually and with professional guidance." "Whatever you think is best," Jared said quickly. "I'll do anything. I've arranged for us to meet with a child psychologist who specializes in family reunification, Dr. Simmons. She'll help us navigate this situation in a way that minimizes any potential harm to Lena." "When?" "Next Tuesday at 5. Her office is on West 72nd Street. I'll text you the address." Jared felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, Amara. This means more to me than I can say." "I'm not doing it for you," she replied, her voice firm. "I'm doing it for Lena. She deserves to know where she comes from, even if that means letting you into her life." "I understand, and I promise you I won't let either of you down again." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Don't make promises you can't keep, Jared. Just show up on Tuesday. We'll go from there." After they hung up, Jared sat at his desk, overwhelmed with emotion. He was going to get a chance, a real chance, to be a father to his daughter. Not immediately, not easily, but a chance nonetheless. He picked up his phone again and called Marcus. "I need you to clear my schedule for Tuesday afternoon," he said when his lawyer answered. "Tuesday? But that's the day before your arraignment. We were going to do final prep. This is more important. Family emergency." There was a pause. "Jared, with all due respect, nothing is more important right now than preparing for your arraignment. We're talking about charges that could send you to prison for up to 15 years. I understand the stakes, Marcus, but some things matter more than freedom, more than money, more than anything. What's going on with you? Marcus sounded genuinely concerned. Ever since that first hearing, you've been different, distracted, making decisions that don't make sense. Jared took a deep breath. I found out I have a daughter, he said simply. With Judge Wells, a 7-year-old little girl I never knew existed. The silence on the other end was deafening. Marcus, I'm here, his lawyer finally replied. Just processing, this is complicated. Tell me about it, Jared said with a humorless laugh. You realize this could impact your case? If this gets out, the prosecution might argue you're trying to influence the former judge through your child. Jared's grip on the phone tightened. Don't even go there, Marcus. This has nothing to do with my case. Nothing. This is about making things right with my daughter and her mother. Okay, Marcus said quickly. I'm just doing my job, thinking of all angles. I'll clear your Tuesday afternoon. But Jared, please, be careful, both for your sake and for theirs. After hanging up, Jared turned to his computer and began a search for child psychologists. Dr. Simmons' name appeared quickly. Dr. Lena Simmons, specialist in family reunification and parental alienation. Her website showed a kind-faced woman in her 50s. Jared read through her articles and advice columns, trying to understand what lay ahead. The process would be slow, she emphasized in her writing. Trust had to be built gradually. Children needed time to adjust to new family members. False expectations could lead to disappointment and trauma. He made notes, determined to do this right. For once in his life, he would put someone else's needs before his own. Lena deserved that. Amara deserved that. As he read, a notification popped up on his screen, a news alert about his upcoming arraignment. The business world was watching closely, speculating about the impact on his company if he were convicted. A week ago, that would have been his sole focus. Now it seemed almost irrelevant. What good was his empire if he couldn't share it with the daughter he never knew he had? What did freedom matter if he couldn't use it to be the father Lena deserved? For the first time in his adult life, Jared Langston was thinking beyond himself, and it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Saturday morning found Amara and Lena in their favorite neighborhood park. Lena was on the swing set, pumping her legs to go higher and higher, her curls flying in the breeze. "Watch me, Mom," she called. "I'm flying." "I see you, baby," Amara called back, smiling at her daughter's joy. "Not too high, okay?" As she watched Lena play, Amara's mind drifted to Tuesday's upcoming meeting with Dr. Simmons. She still hadn't told Lena about it, about Jared. Dr. Simmons had advised waiting until after the initial consultation when they had a clear plan in place. "Judge Wells?" Her voice interrupted her thoughts. "I thought that was you." Amara looked up to see District Attorney Richard Collins, the man overseeing Jared's prosecution. He was in running clothes, a water bottle in hand. "Mr. Collins," she nodded politely. "Out for a morning run?" Trying to stay fit despite the desk job, he smiled. "Is that your daughter? She's beautiful." Amara felt a flicker of unease. "Yes, that's Lena, thank you." Collins sat on the bench beside her. "I was surprised when you recused yourself from the Langston case. The assignment was specifically requested by the chief judge because of your expertise in financial fraud." "There was a conflict of interest," Amara said carefully. "So I gathered," Collins replied. Though the nature of that conflict remains unclear, something in his tone made Amara's guard go up. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, Mr. Collins. As you know, the reasons for recusal are confidential." He nodded, taking a sip of water. Of course, just professional curiosity." His eyes drifted to Lena again. "She looks familiar somehow, those curls." Amara stood abruptly. "If you'll excuse me, Mr. Collins, Lena and I have a busy day ahead. Enjoy your run." She walked quickly to the swing set. "Time to go, sweetie. We need to get to your piano lesson." "5 more minutes," Lena pleaded. "Not today, honey, we're running late." As they walked away, Amara could feel Collins watching them. The encounter left her with a sense of dread. If the district attorney was already making connections, how long before others did too? How long before Lena's parentage became public knowledge? The thought of her daughter being thrust into the spotlight, becoming part of the media circus surrounding Jared's case, made Amara feel physically ill. She had worked so hard to protect Lena, to give her a normal childhood despite her own high-profile career. When they arrived home after piano lessons, Amara made a decision. She called Jared. "We need to talk," she said when he answered. "Not about Tuesday, about something else. Can you meet me tonight after Lena's in bed?" "Of course," Jared replied immediately. "Is everything okay?" "No," Amara said honestly. "I don't think it is." They arranged to meet at a quiet bar near Amara's apartment at 9. After hanging up, Amara tried to focus on giving Lena a normal, happy day, making pancakes for lunch, helping with her reading homework, watching her favorite movie together. But beneath the surface, anxiety churned. She had known that allowing Jared into Lena's life would be complicated. She just hadn't realized how quickly those complications would arise, or how far-reaching they might be. That night, after tucking Lena in and leaving her with Teresa, Amara headed to the bar. Jared was already there, waiting in a corner booth. "Away from other patrons, what's wrong?" he asked as soon as she sat down. "Is it Lena? Is she okay?" The genuine concern in his voice caught Amara off guard. "Lena's fine for now, but I had an encounter today that worried me." She told him about meeting Collins at the park, about his pointed questions and observations about Lena's appearance. "He's not stupid," she concluded. "He's putting the pieces together, and if he figures it out, it could look like I'm trying to influence my case through you and Lena," Jared finished grimly. "Exactly. Or worse, that I was somehow compromised when I was initially assigned to your case." Amara shook her head. "My reputation, my career, everything I've built could be at risk, and Lena could be dragged into a public scandal." Jared was quiet for a moment, his expression troubled. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," Amara admitted. "Postpone the meeting with Dr. Simmons until after your case is resolved. But that could be months, even years, if there's an appeal process. Or I could plead guilty," Jared said quietly. Amara's head snapped up. "What?" "I could take a plea deal. Get this over with quickly. Minimize the media attention. But if you're innocent—" "I made mistakes," Jared interrupted. "Technical violations, not deliberate fraud, but mistakes nonetheless. I was willing to fight the charges because I thought my reputation was the most important thing to protect." He looked directly at her. "Now I know it's not." Amara stared at him, trying to reconcile this man with the Jared she had known, the ambitious, driven law student who would never have sacrificed his career for anyone. "You would do that?" she asked softly. "Take a plea deal, possibly go to prison to protect Lena from publicity?" "In a heartbeat," he replied without hesitation. The conviction in his voice made something shift inside Amara. Maybe he had changed after all. "Let me think about it," she said finally. "This isn't a decision to make hastily, and you should talk to your lawyer before you do anything." Jared nodded. "I will. But Amara, whatever happens with my case, I want you to know that Lena comes first now for both of us." As she walked home that night, Amara found herself wondering if perhaps the biggest mistake of her life hadn't been loving Jared Langston, but rather not giving him the chance to explain why he left. Maybe some mistakes, no matter how painful, could be forgiven. Not forgotten, but forgiven. For Lena's sake. And maybe, just maybe, for her own. Tuesday afternoon arrived faster than either Jared or Amara expected. The offices of Dr. Elena Simmons were located in a converted brownstone on West 72nd Street, with warm lighting and comfortable furniture that made it feel more like a home than a medical practice. Jared arrived 15 minutes early, too nervous to wait any longer at his office. He paced the waiting room, straightening his tie repeatedly, checking his watch every few minutes. At exactly 5 o'clock, Amara walked in alone. She wore a simple blue dress instead of her usual work attire, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. "Where's Lena?" Jared asked, unable to hide his disappointment. "This first meeting is just for us," Amara explained. "Dr. Simmons wants to talk to us before she meets Lena." Before Jared could respond, a door opened, and a middle-aged woman with silver-streaked dark hair and kind eyes appeared. "Judge Wells, Mr. Langston. I'm Dr. Simmons. Please come in." They followed her into a comfortable office with bookshelves. lining the walls and children's artwork, framed on every available surface. She gestured for them to sit on a small sofa while she took a chair across from them. "First, I want to thank you both for coming," Dr. Simmons began. "What we're discussing today is how to potentially introduce Mr. Langston into Lena's life in a way that's healthy and positive for her." She looked directly at Jared. "Judge Wells has explained the basics of your situation, but I'd like to hear from you, Mr. Langston. Why do you want to be part of Lena's life now?" Jared took a deep breath. "Because she's my daughter. Because I've already missed 7 years that I can never get back. Because," his voice cracked slightly, "because I want to be the father she deserves." Dr. Simmons nodded. "And are you prepared for the reality that this won't be easy? That Lena may have questions, may be angry, may reject you initially?" "Yes," Jared said firmly. "I don't expect it to be easy. I just want the chance to try." "And what about your legal situation?" Dr. Simmons asked directly. "Judge Wells mentioned you're facing criminal charges. How does that factor into your ability to be present for Lena?" Jared glanced at Amara before answering. "I'm meeting with the prosecutor tomorrow to discuss a plea agreement. My priority now is resolving this case as quickly as possible, with minimal media attention, so it doesn't affect Lena." Dr. Simmons raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant decision. Are you certain it's what you want to do?" "I've never been more certain of anything," Jared replied without hesitation. The therapist turned to Amara. "And how do you feel about Mr. Langston becoming part of Lena's life?" Amara was quiet for a moment. "Scared," she finally admitted. "Scared he'll disappear again and leave her heartbroken. Scared this is all happening too fast. But also," she paused, "aware that Lena deserves to know her father. That keeping them apart might hurt her more in the long run." Dr. Simmons nodded thoughtfully. "Those are valid concerns. This is why we're going to proceed carefully with clear boundaries and expectations." She looked between them. "Have you discussed how you'll explain to Lena who Mr. Langston is?" "Not yet," Amara replied. "I wasn't sure how much to tell her or when." "In my experience," Dr. Simmons said, "honesty is best. But at a level the child can understand. For a 7-year-old, simple truths without too many complicated details." She turned to Jared. "I recommend we begin with a supervised meeting, not telling Lena immediately that you're her father, but introducing you as someone from her mother's past who wants to get to know her. After a few meetings, once she's comfortable with you, we can explain your relationship to her." Jared nodded, though his expression betrayed his impatience. "How long before she knows I'm her father?" "That depends on Lena," Dr. Simmons replied firmly. "Children need to set the pace in situations like this. It could be weeks, it could be months." "I understand," Jared said, though it clearly wasn't the answer he wanted. For the next hour, they discussed logistics, boundaries, and expectations. Dr. Simmons was clear about the need for consistency, patience, and putting Lena's needs above their own feelings. "One last thing," she said as the session was ending. "I'd like to meet with Lena alone before we arrange the first meeting, to establish a relationship with her and to assess her readiness." "Of course," Amara agreed. "When?" "I have an opening this Friday at 4. Can you bring her then?" Amara nodded, making a note in her phone calendar. As they left the office, Jared and Amara walked silently to the elevator. Once inside, Jared spoke. "Thank you for doing this, Amara. I know it can't be easy." Amara looked at him, her expression guarded but no longer hostile. "I'm doing it for Lena." "I know, but still, thank you." They stepped out onto the street, the early evening sun casting long shadows between the buildings. "What will you tell the prosecutor tomorrow?" Amara asked. "That I want to resolve this quickly, that I'm willing to accept responsibility for the regulatory violations in exchange for minimal jail time." Jared's voice was calm, resolved. "Are you sure that's what you want to do? If it protects you and Lena from a media circus, absolutely." Amara shook her head slightly. "The Jared I knew in law school would never have sacrificed his career for anyone." "The Jared you knew in law school was a fool," he replied simply, "who thought success meant having the biggest deals, the most money, the best address." He looked at her intently. I was wrong about what matters. It took losing you to realize that, but I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. Before Amara could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. It's my aunt. She's with Lena. I need to take this. Jared nodded. Go ahead. I'll be in touch after my meeting tomorrow. As he watched her walk away answering her phone, Jared felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. The path ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was finally moving in the right direction. The next morning, Jared sat across from District Attorney Collins in a conference room at the prosecutor's office. Marcus was beside him, looking concerned. I'd like to discuss a plea agreement, Jared said without preamble. Collins raised an eyebrow. This is unexpected. Your lawyer has been insisting you're completely innocent. I made mistakes, Jared replied. Not deliberate fraud, but regulatory. Violations that I take responsibility for. I'd like to resolve this case quickly, with minimal public attention. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside him. They had argued about this decision for hours the previous evening, but Jared had been adamant. Collins leaned back in his chair, studying Jared with interest. Why the sudden change of heart, Mr. Langston? Until recently, you seemed prepared for a lengthy legal battle. My priorities have changed, Jared said, simply. A knowing look crossed Collins' face. Do these changed priorities have anything to do with your connection to Judge Wells, the one that caused her to recuse herself from your case? Jared felt Marcus tense beside him, but kept his own expression neutral. My decision is based on a desire to resolve this matter efficiently and take responsibility for my actions. Nothing more. Collins smiled slightly. Of course. He tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. Here's what I can offer. You plead guilty to 4 counts of securities violations. We drop the more serious fraud charges. 18 months in. A minimum security facility, 2 years probation after release, and a $5 million fine. 18 months, Marcus interjected. That's ridiculous. If my client is willing to plead to the lesser charges, we should be talking about house arrest or probation, not prison time. Collins shrugged. The offer is what it is. Given the scale of the violations and the impact on investors, anything less would be a dereliction of my duty. Jared held up a hand to silence Marcus's next objection. I'll take the deal with one condition. You're not really in a position to make conditions, Mr. Langston, Collins replied coolly. This one is non-negotiable, Jared insisted. Whatever happens, Judge Wells and her daughter are to be left completely out of this. No mention of them in any press releases, no implications of any connection to me. Their privacy is to be absolutely respected. Collins's expression changed, a flash of something triumph in his eyes. So there is a connection between you and the judge, one that involves her daughter. Jared realized his mistake too late. He'd revealed exactly what Collins had been fishing for. My client's personal relationships are not relevant to this case, Marcus cut in sharply, and certainly not part of any plea negotiation. On the contrary, Collins replied, if there's a personal relationship between the defendant and the judge originally assigned to his case, one that was not disclosed, that's highly relevant. It raises questions about whether the judge's impartiality was compromised before her recusal. Amara, Judge Wells, recused herself immediately when she realized I was the defendant, Jared said, his voice tight with anger. Her integrity is beyond question. That's for the Judicial Ethics Committee to decide, Collins said smoothly. Jared stood abruptly. This meeting is over. We'll see you in court. Jared, Marcus warned, but Jared was already heading for the door. Think carefully, Mr. Langston, Collins called after him. My offer won't improve with time, and a public trial means public scrutiny of everyone involved. Outside the building, Marcus caught up to Jared on the sidewalk. What the hell was that? You were ready to take a deal, and then you blew it up over Collins' fishing expedition. He was threatening Amara, Jared said, his voice cold with fury. Using Lena as leverage. No, he was doing his job, Marcus replied. And now, instead of a plea with 18 months, you're looking at a trial with potential for 15 years if we lose. Then we better not lose, Jared said firmly. I won't let Collins use my case to go after Amara's career or to expose Lena to public scrutiny. Marcus sighed heavily. This complicates everything. If Collins suspects a personal connection between you and Judge Wells, he'll investigate. And if he finds out she has a daughter who might be yours, then we need to get ahead of this, Jared said, his mind racing. We need a new strategy. Which is, I don't know yet, but I won't let them hurt my family. The word family hung in the air between them. Until a few weeks ago, Jared had never used that word to describe anyone but his parents. Now it felt like the most important word in his vocabulary. Amara sat in Dr. Simmons' waiting room on Friday afternoon, watching Lena flip through a children's magazine. She hadn't told her daughter the real reason for this visit, just that it was a chance to talk to someone who helped families. Lena Wells? Dr. Simmons appeared in the doorway with a warm smile. I'm Dr. Lena. Would you like to come see my playroom? Lena looked at Amara questioningly. It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be right here waiting when you're done. Lena nodded and followed Dr. Simmons through the door. Amara watched them go, her heart tight with anxiety. So much depended on this meeting. Lena's emotional well-being, her sense of security, her understanding of who she was and where she came from. Amara's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jared. Need to talk. Meeting with Collins didn't go well. Can I call you? Amara frowned, typing back, in waiting room at Dr. S's office with L. Will call when I get home. While she waited, Amara tried to distract herself with work, emails, but her mind kept drifting to Jared and what might have gone wrong with the prosecutor. She had mixed feelings about his decision to take a plea deal. On one hand, it showed he was prioritizing Lena's well-being over his own freedom. On the other, if he was truly innocent of deliberate wrongdoing, should he have to plead guilty after? 45 minutes, the door opened and Lena came out, followed by Dr. Simmons. Mom, Dr. Elena has a dollhouse with a judge's office in it, and she let me play court. Amara smiled, relieved to see her daughter looking happy. That sounds fun. Sweetie, Dr. Simmons smiled. Lena, would you mind sitting in the waiting room for just a minute while I talk to your mum? There are some new coloring books on the table. Okay, Lena agreed easily, heading for the coloring supplies. Dr. Simmons gestured for Amara to step into her office. Once the door was closed, she spoke quietly. Lena is a remarkable child, bright, articulate, and emotionally mature for her age. Thank you, Amara said, unable to hide the pride in her voice. She talked about you a lot, how you read together every night, how you take her to the courthouse sometimes on weekends to show her where you work. Amara nodded. I've tried to include her in my life as much as possible to make up for not having a father, Dr. Simmons finished. Yes, we talked about that too. She said you told her that her dad wasn't ready to be a father when she was born. It seemed like the simplest explanation, Amara said. Better than saying he abandoned us. Dr. Simmons nodded. It was a good approach. But Lena is at an age now where she's curious about her origins. She asked me if I knew her father. Amara's breath caught. What did you say? I told her that I was helping her mom with some grown-up things and that she might have more answers soon. Dr. Simmons looked at Amara directly. I believe she's ready to meet Mr. Langston as a friend of yours initially. She's secure in her relationship with you, which gives her a strong foundation. Relief washed over Amara. When do you think we should arrange the meeting? Next week would be good. Somewhere neutral but comfortable for Lena, perhaps the children's section of a bookstore or a casual restaurant she likes. Amara nodded. There's a pizza place near our apartment that she loves. Perfect. Just a casual meal, no pressure, keeping the focus on Lena rather than on adult concerns. As they worked out the details, Amara felt a mixture of anxiety and hope. This was really happening. Jared was going to meet his daughter. After 8 years of raising Lena alone, of being both mother and father, of answering difficult questions about why their family looked different from others, she was opening the door to change. Was it the right decision? She still wasn't sure. But seeing Lena's curiosity about her father, her natural desire to know where she came from, Amara knew she couldn't keep that door closed forever. After leaving Dr. Simmons' office, Amara took Lena for ice cream, a small celebration for being so good during the appointment. As Lena happily devoured a chocolate sundae, Amara watched her with a bittersweet smile. Her little girl was growing up so fast. Too fast. Mom, Lena looked up from her ice cream. Is something wrong? You look sad. Not sad, sweetie. Just thinking. About what? Amara reached over to tuck a stray curl behind Lena's ear. About how much I love you and how lucky I am to be your mum. Lena grinned, chocolate sauce on her chin. I'm lucky too. Jenny at school says I have the coolest mum because you put bad guys in jail. Amara laughed. Well, not exactly. Judges don't actually put people in jail. We just make sure the laws are followed fairly. Like a referee. Something like that, yes. Lena nodded, satisfied with the explanation, and returned to her ice cream. Amara marveled at her daughter's ability to simplify complex concepts, a trait she'd inherited from Jared, who had always had a gift for cutting through legal jargon to the heart of a case. There was so much of him in her, not just in her looks, but in her personality. Her determination, her curiosity, her charm. How had Amara not seen it before? Or had she seen it and tried to ignore it because it was too painful to acknowledge? Later that evening, after Lena was asleep, Amara called Jared as promised. What? Happened with Collins? She asked after he answered. Jared sighed heavily. It went south. He offered a deal. 18 months in prison. But then he started asking about you and Lena, implying there was something improper about our connection. I refused the deal. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. What exactly did he say? He suggested your impartiality might have been compromised before you recused yourself. Threatened to involve the Judicial Ethics Committee. He can't prove anything, Amara said, but her voice lacked conviction. He's fishing. Maybe. But he's determined. And now that I've walked away from his deal, he'll be even more motivated to find something he can use against us. Amara closed her eyes, trying to think clearly through the fear rising within her. This could damage my career, Jared. Everything I've worked for. I know, he replied, his voice tight with guilt. I'm so sorry, Amara. The last thing I wanted was to bring trouble into your life again. It's not your fault, not this time. She took a deep breath. We need to figure out our next move before Collins does. I've been thinking about that, Jared said. What if we control the narrative? What if we go public on our terms before Collins can use this against us? Go public about Lena. The idea made Amara's stomach clench with fear. Absolutely not. Not about Lena specifically. Just about our past relationship. We could say we dated in law school, went our separate ways, and recently reconnected when my case came before you, which is why you immediately recused yourself. That's not untrue, Amara admitted, but it doesn't explain why I never disclosed the relationship before recusing myself. You could say you didn't immediately recognize me. It had been 8 years, people change. Amara was quiet, considering the idea. It might work, but it doesn't address the real issue, Lena. No, Jared agreed, but it might buy us time. Take some of the wind out of Collins's sails. I'll think about it, Amara said. In the meantime, Dr. Simmons thinks Lena is ready to meet you. Not as her father yet, just as a friend of mine. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Jared spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. When? Next week. Tuesday evening at Gino's Pizza near our apartment. It's Lena's favorite place. I'll be there, Jared promised. What? What should I bring? Does she like dolls, books? What would a 7-year-old girl want? The uncertainty in his voice, the eagerness to get it right, touched something in Amara's heart. She loves books, especially stories about brave girls having adventures. Books. Got it. There was a pause. Amara, thank you for giving me this chance. I know you're doing it for her, not for me, but still. Thank you. After they hung up, Amara sat in the dim light of her living room, thinking about how quickly her carefully constructed life was changing. For years it had been just her and Lena against the world. She had built walls around them, protection against the pain of Jared's abandonment, against the judgment of others, against the uncertainty of depending on anyone else. Now those walls were coming down brick by brick. It was terrifying, and yet there was a small part of her that felt relief, as if a burden she had carried alone for too long was finally being shared. The question was whether Jared was strong enough to help carry it, or whether, as he had 8 years ago, he would drop it and walk away when the weight became too much. The weekend passed in a blur of activity for Jared. He spent Saturday morning in a children's bookstore, browsing the shelves with an intensity that made the sales clerk smile knowingly. "Shopping for your daughter?" she asked as she rang up his purchases. 5 different adventure books featuring strong female protagonists. "Yes," Jared replied, the word still new and wonderful on his tongue. "My daughter." The clerk wrapped the books in colorful paper. "She's a lucky girl. Not all dads take this much time picking out the perfect books. If only she knew," Jared thought, how he was trying to make up for 7 years of absence with a stack of children's books. How he would give everything he owned for the chance to go back and be there from the beginning. But time travel wasn't possible. All he could do was move forward, trying to be the father Lena deserved now. Saturday afternoon found him back in Marcus's office, discussing strategy for his case. "If you won't take the plea, we need to prepare for trial," Marcus said, pushing a stack of documents across the desk. "These are the prosecution's discovery materials. We need to go through them line by line." Jared nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. On Tuesday evening, on meeting Lena for the first time, on what he would say, how he would act, whether she would like him. "Jared, are you listening?" Marcus's voice broke through his thoughts. "Sorry, yes, discovery materials, line by line." Marcus sighed. "Look, I understand this situation with Judge Wells and her daughter is complicated, but you need to focus on your case. If you're convicted, you won't be able to build a relationship with your daughter from prison." "I know," Jared said, "but I also won't build a relationship with her if I miss this opportunity to meet her. I need to balance both priorities." "Well, you might have more time than we thought," Marcus said, shuffling through some papers. "The prosecution has asked for a continuance. They want to delay the trial by 60 days. Jared frowned. "Why?" "They claim they need more time to review evidence, but my sources tell me Collins is digging into your personal life, looking for connections to Judge Wells. He won't find much," Jared said. "We were careful back in law school not to leave a digital trail. No social media posts, no shared addresses." "Let's hope you're right," Marcus replied. "Because if he finds proof that Judge Wells knew about your relationship before she recused herself, it could be problematic for both of you." Jared nodded. Grimly, Collins was becoming a serious threat, not just to him but to Amara and by extension to Lena. He needed to find a way to neutralize that threat, and soon, but first he had a more immediate challenge to face, meeting his daughter for the first time. Everything else would have to wait. Tuesday evening arrived with a mix of rain and nerves. Amara stood in front of her closet, changing her outfit for the 3rd time. "You look pretty, Mommy," Lena said from the doorway, already dressed in her favorite purple dress with white tights. "Why are you changing again?" Amara smiled, trying to hide her anxiety. "Just want to look nice for dinner, sweetie. Is it because we're meeting your friend?" "Yes," Amara admitted. "It's been a long time since I've seen him." "Is he nice?" Lena asked, climbing onto Amara's bed. Amara paused, considering the question. "He was, when I knew him before. I think he still is." "Then why are you so nervous?" Lena's perceptiveness sometimes caught Amara off guard, because Amara sat beside her daughter, choosing her words carefully. "Because when people haven't seen each other for a long time, it can be a little awkward at first." Lena nodded sagely. "Like when I didn't see Grandma for a whole year and I was shy when she visited." "Exactly like that," Amara agreed, grateful for her daughter's simple wisdom. "Don't worry, Mom," Lena said, patting Amara's hand. "I'll help. If it gets awkward, I can tell him about my school play." Tears pricked at Amara's eyes. How had she raised such a compassionate, thoughtful child? "That would be perfect, sweetie. Thank you." They arrived at Gino's Pizza 5 minutes early. The restaurant was casual and family-friendly, with red checkered tablecloths and murals of Italy on the walls. Lena immediately went to examine the fish tank near the entrance, giving Amara a moment to scan the restaurant. Jared wasn't there yet. Amara requested a booth near the back, away from the windows, and settled Lena with her coloring book while they waited. At exactly 6:30, the door opened and Jared walked in. He wore jeans and a casual button-down shirt, more relaxed than his usual business attire, and carried a gift bag. His eyes found Amara immediately, and she gave a small nod to indicate their location. As he approached, Amara squeezed Lena's hand gently. "Lena, this is my friend Jared that I told you about. Jared, this is my daughter, Lena." Jared's face softened as he looked at Lena for the first time up close. "Hello, Lena," he said, his voice warm but slightly uncertain. "It's very nice to meet you." Lena looked up at him with curious eyes, eyes that were so much like his own. "Hello," she replied shyly. "Do you like pizza?" Jared smiled, visibly, relaxing at the simple question. "I love pizza, especially with extra cheese. What's your favorite kind?" "Pepperoni and mushroom," Lena declared. "Mom says it's an unusual combination, but I like it." "That sounds delicious," Jared said, sliding into the booth across from them. "I might have to try that tonight." Amara watched the exchange with a tight chest, seeing her daughter and her father interact for the first time. It was surreal, heartbreaking, and beautiful all at once. "I brought you something," Jared said, placing the gift bag on the table. "Your mom mentioned you like adventure books." Lena's eyes lit up. "Can I open it now, Mom?" Amara nodded and Lena eagerly pulled the tissue paper from the bag, revealing the stack of colorfully wrapped books. "Wow, 5 presents," she exclaimed, looking at Jared with new appreciation. "5 adventures," he corrected with a smile. "For a girl who I hear is very brave and smart." Lena carefully unwrapped each book, examining the covers with interest. "This one has a girl with curly hair like mine," she noted, holding up a book about a young explorer. "I thought you might like that," Jared said, his voice thick with emotion. "The bookseller said she's one of the bravest characters in children's literature." "Thank you," Lena said sincerely. "I'll read them all." "You're very welcome," Jared replied, and Amara could see him fighting back tears. The waitress arrived to take their order, providing a welcome distraction. As they settled into conversation about favorite foods, school activities, and Lena's upcoming piano recital, Amara watched Jared with Lena. He listened intently to everything she said, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. Not once did he check his phone or seem distracted, a stark contrast to the ambitious law student she had known, who was always half-focused on the next opportunity, the next achievement. When Lena excused herself to the restroom, Amara spoke quietly. "You're good with her." Jared's expression was one of wonder. "She's amazing, Amara, so smart, so perfect." "She is," Amara agreed, "and I need to know that you understand what's at stake here. If we tell her who you are, if you become part of her life, you can't walk away again, ever. It would destroy her." "I won't," Jared said with absolute conviction. "I will never leave her again, I swear it." Amara studied his face, searching for any hint of the old Jared, the one who had abandoned her when a better opportunity came along. But all she saw was sincerity and determination. "One step at a time," she said, as Lena returned to the table. "We follow Dr. Simmons's lead on this." The rest of the dinner passed pleasantly, with Lena gradually warming up to Jared, showing him her drawings and telling him about her school friends. By the time they finished their ice cream desserts, she was chatting comfortably, her initial shyness forgotten. As they prepared to leave, Lena looked at Jared. "Will we see you again?" The simple question hung in the air, loaded with meaning for the adults. "I hope so," Jared replied carefully, looking to Amara for confirmation. "If that's okay with your mom." Amara nodded. "Yes, we can have dinner again soon." Outside the restaurant, as they prepared to go their separate ways, Jared knelt to Lena's level. "Thank you for letting me join you for pizza, Lena. I had a wonderful time." "Me too," she replied with a smile that was so like his own. "Next time you should try the pepperoni and mushroom. It's really good." "I definitely will," he promised. As Jared stood, his eyes met Amara's over Lena's head. In that moment, something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the precious gift they had created together, of the responsibility they shared, of the complex future that lay ahead. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said softly. Amara nodded, then took Lena's hand and turned toward home. As they walked away, Lena looked back over her shoulder and waved at Jared one last time. It was a small gesture, just a child being polite, to a new adult friend. But to Jared, standing alone on the sidewalk, it felt like the most important wave he had ever received. His daughter had acknowledged him, had liked him, at least a little bit. It wasn't everything, but it was a beginning. And for now, that was enough. What he didn't see, as he finally turned to hail a cab, was the man watching from across the street, District Attorney Richard Collins, a calculating expression on his face as he observed the little family dinner and its emotional aftermath. The game was about to change, and none of them were prepared for what would come next. The morning after the pizza dinner, Amara was in her chambers reviewing case notes when her assistant knocked on the door. "Judge." "Wells, District Attorney Collins is here to see you. He says it's urgent." Amara felt a chill run down her spine, but kept her expression neutral. "Send him in." Collins entered with the confident stride of a man who believed he held all the cards. He closed the door behind him and stood in front of her desk without waiting. "To be invited to sit." "Judge Wells," he began, his tone falsely pleasant, "I wanted to speak with you personally about a matter of some delicacy." "I'm listening," Amara replied coolly. Collins reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "I have here some photographs that I think you'll find interesting." He slid the envelope across her desk. "Taken last night outside Gino's Pizza." With steady hands that belied her racing heart, Amara opened the envelope. Inside were several photos, Jared kneeling to speak to Lena, Amara watching them with an emotional expression, Lena waving goodbye to Jared. "You had us followed," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Not initially," Collins replied smoothly. "I happened to be in the neighborhood and recognized Mr. Langston entering a restaurant. Professional curiosity led me to observe. Imagine my surprise when I saw you and your daughter joining him for what appeared to be a very familiar dinner." Amara said nothing, waiting for him to show his hand. "Your daughter bears a striking resemblance to Mr. Langston," Collins continued. "The timing is interesting too. She appears to be about 7, and my research indicates you and Langston were at law school together 8 years ago." "What exactly are you implying, Mr. Collins?" Amara asked, though she knew perfectly well. "I'm not implying anything, I'm stating facts." He leaned forward, placing his hands on her desk. "Jared Langston is the father of your child. A fact you failed to disclose when you were assigned to his case." "I recused myself immediately," Amara said firmly. "There was no impropriety." "But there was knowledge," Collins countered. "You knew he was the father of your child when you walked into that courtroom. Yet you didn't disclose that relationship until after the first hearing." "That's not true," Amara said, standing to face him. "I had no idea Jared Langston was the defendant until I walked into that courtroom. I hadn't seen him in 8 years. As soon as I recognized him, I recused myself." Collins raised an eyebrow. "Her convenient claim, but difficult to prove. What is easy to prove, however, is the biological connection between Langston and your daughter. A paternity test would be quite conclusive." Amara felt her blood run cold. "You would drag a 7-year-old child into a legal matter. For what purpose?" "Justice," Collins replied simply. "The integrity of our legal system depends on transparency. If a judge conceals a personal relationship with a defendant—" "I concealed nothing," Amara interrupted, her voice firm despite her fear. "And I will not allow you to use my daughter as a pawn in whatever game you're playing." Collins straightened, smoothing his tie. "No game, Judge Wells, just a commitment to the truth." He headed for the door, then turned back. "I'll be filing a complaint with the Judicial Ethics Committee this afternoon. I suggest you prepare yourself for some difficult questions." After he left, Amara sank back into her chair, her hands shaking. This was what she had feared from the beginning, her professional reputation tarnished, her integrity questioned, her daughter exposed to public scrutiny. She picked up her phone and dialed Jared's number. "Collins knows," she said without preamble when he answered. "He was watching us last night. He has photos. He's threatening to file a complaint with the Ethics Committee and is talking about paternity tests." "I'll be right there," Jared replied. "Immediately. Don't do anything until I arrive." 30 minutes later, Jared was shown into Amara's chambers. She had composed herself outwardly, but he could see the fear in her eyes. "We need to get ahead of this," he said, sitting across from her, "before Collins can control the narrative." "How?" "He's already filing a complaint. Once that happens, there will be an investigation, media coverage." "Not if we act first," Jared insisted. "We go public on our terms. Today." Amara shook her head. "I can't expose Lena like that." "We don't have to. We control what information gets out." Jared leaned forward. "We admit that we had a relationship in law school, that we parted ways before either of us knew you were pregnant, that you raised Lena alone, never telling me about her, that when I appeared in your courtroom, you recognized me and immediately recused yourself. But that still doesn't explain why I didn't disclose the relationship before recusing myself." Amara pointed out. "Yes, it does," Jared replied, "because you didn't immediately recognize me. It had been 8 years. I looked different. Shorter hair, no glasses. It wasn't until partway through the hearing that you realized who I was, and you recused yourself at the first opportunity." Amara considered this. "It's close enough to the truth to be believable. And it protects Lena," Jared added. "We don't have to explicitly state that she's my daughter. We simply say that after you recused yourself, we reconnected personally. Separate from my legal case." "Collins won't buy it," Amara said. "He'll still push for a paternity test, still file his complaint." "Let him," Jared replied firmly. "If we get our story out first, his actions will look like a vindictive attempt to discredit a respected judge. It becomes his word against ours, and we have the advantage of acting openly and honestly." Amara was quiet for a moment, thinking. "We would need to tell Lena something. If this becomes public, she might hear things at school." "Then maybe it's time," Jared said softly. "Time to tell her who I really am." The weight of that suggestion hung in the air between them. It was much sooner than Dr. Simmons had recommended, but circumstances were forcing their hand. "Let me call Dr. Simmons," Amara said finally. "We need her guidance on how to handle this with Lena." While Amara made the call, Jared paced her office, thinking through their options. This wasn't how he had wanted things to happen. He had hoped for a gradual introduction to Lena's life, time to build trust and connection before taking on the full role of father. But Collins had changed the timeline. "Doctor, Simmons can see us at 4 this afternoon," Amara said after hanging up. "She agrees we need to prepare Lena if this is going to become public." Jared nodded. "What about our public statement? We need to act quickly." "I have a friend who works for the Legal Times," Amara said. "She's discreet and fair. We could give her an exclusive interview. Get our version out before Collins can file his complaint." "Perfect," Jared agreed. "Can she meet us today?" "I'll call her now." By noon, they had arranged for reporter Elena Matthews to meet them at Amara's chambers at 2. That gave them 2 hours to prepare their story, to decide exactly what to reveal and what to keep private. "We stick as close to the truth as possible," Amara insisted as they worked out the details. "Just edited for timing," Jared agreed. "The truth is, I left without knowing you were pregnant. I didn't know about Lena until I saw her in your courtroom last month. And I didn't recognize you immediately," Amara added. "It wasn't until partway through the hearing that I realized who you were." They refined their story, making sure their facts aligned without revealing more than necessary. By the time Elena arrived, they were prepared. The interview lasted an hour. Elena was professional but thorough, asking difficult questions about their past relationship, the timing of Amara's recusal, and their recent reconnection. "I understand there's a personal element to this story," she said toward the end of the interview. "You mentioned reconnecting outside of the courtroom after Judge Wells recused herself. Can you elaborate on that?" Amara and Jared exchanged a glance before Amara answered carefully. "After 8 years, we had a lot to catch up on. Our lives have taken very different paths, but we found that we still have a connection worth exploring. And your daughter, Judge Wells. How does she factor into this reconnection?" "My daughter's privacy is paramount," Amara replied firmly. "All I'll say is that any relationship moving forward will take her well-being into account first and foremost." Elena nodded, seeming to accept this boundary. "One last question. Mr. Langston, how do you respond to rumors that your case might be dismissed due to this personal connection to the judge originally assigned?" "There's no basis for dismissal," Jared said confidently. Judge Wells recused herself immediately upon recognizing me, and the case has been reassigned to Judge Thompson, who has no connection to either of us. I expect the legal process to continue based on the facts of the case, not on personal matters. After Lena left, promising the article would run in the next day's edition, Amara and Jared headed to Dr. Simmons' office. They arrived early and were shown directly into her private office. I've been thinking about your situation since you called, Dr. Simmons said after they were seated. While I still believe a gradual approach would be ideal, circumstances are forcing your hand. The question now is how to tell Lena in a way that minimizes confusion and anxiety. What do you recommend? Amara asked. Children need honesty, but at a level they can understand, Dr. Simmons explained. I suggest you tell Lena tonight in the comfort of your home with both of you present. Keep it simple, that Jared is her father, that he didn't know about her until recently, and that he wants very much to be part of her life now. Will she understand? Won't she have questions about why he wasn't there before? Amara's voice held all the worry she felt. Of course she'll have questions, Dr. Simmons acknowledged. Answer them truthfully but age-appropriately. The key is to emphasize that none of this was her fault, and that both of you love her very much. Should I be there for the whole conversation? Jared asked. Or would it be better if Amara speaks to her first alone? Dr. Simmons considered this. I think it would be best if Amara starts the conversation, helps Lena process the initial information, and then brings you in once Lena is ready to talk to you. They discussed the approach in detail, what words to use, how to address likely questions, how to reassure Lena that her world wasn't being turned upside down. Remember, Dr. Simmons said as they prepared to leave, children are remarkably resilient. Lena has a secure attachment to her mother and a strong sense of self. Those are powerful protective factors. This won't be easy, but with patience and consistent love from both of you, she can adapt to this new family structure. That evening, Amara's apartment was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock in the living room. Jared waited in the kitchen, while Amara sat with Lena on the sofa, gently explaining that she had something important to tell her. You know how I've told you that your daddy wasn't ready to be a father when you were born? Amara began, holding Lena's small hands in hers. Lena nodded. Because he was young and scared. That's right, Amara continued. Well, what I didn't know was that your daddy didn't actually know I was going to have a baby. He left before I found out I was pregnant with you. Lena's brow furrowed as she processed this. So he didn't know about me? No, sweetie, he didn't. Not until very recently. Does he know about me now? Lena asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Amara nodded. Yes, he does. And he wants very much to meet you, to really meet you as your dad. Lena was quiet for a moment, thinking. Do I know him? This was the moment Amara had been preparing for. Yes, you do. Remember my friend Jared, the one we had pizza with? Lena's eyes widened. Jared is my dad. Yes, honey. Jared is your father. Lena sat back against the sofa cushions, her expression a mixture of surprise and confusion. But he gave me books. If he's my dad, why didn't he tell me? Because we wanted to make sure you had a chance to get to know him a little first, Amara explained. To see if you liked him before we told you who he really was. Is he here now? Lena asked, looking around. He's in the kitchen. Would you like to talk to him? Lena nodded, though she scooted closer to Amara on the sofa. Amara called Jared in, and he entered slowly, his face a mixture of hope and apprehension. He sat in the armchair across from them, giving Lena the space she needed. Hi, Lena, he said softly. Hi, she replied, studying him with new eyes. Mom says you're my dad. Jared nodded. Yes, I am. And I want you to know that if I had known about you, I would have been here from the beginning. Why did you leave my mom? Lena asked directly, with the unfiltered honesty of a child. Jared glanced at Amara before answering. I made a mistake, he said simply. I was young and scared about some problems in my family, and I thought I needed to leave to fix them. It was the wrong choice, and I've regretted it ever since. Are you going to leave again? The question held all of Lena's fears, No, Jared promised, his voice firm with conviction. I will never leave you again, Lena. I want to be your dad for the rest of my life if you'll let me. Lena looked at her mother, seeking reassurance. Amara nodded encouragingly. Can I think about it? Lena asked finally. Of course you can, Jared said. This is a lot to take in. You can have all the time you need. And if I want you to be my dad, what happens? Would I live with you sometimes? Amara and Jared exchanged a glance. They hadn't discussed those practical details yet. We would. Figure that out together, Amara answered. But your home would still be here with me. Jared would just be part of our lives in a new way. Lena nodded, processing this. Can I go to my room now? I want to read one of my new books. Of course, sweetie, Amara said, kissing the top of her head. Take all the time you need. After Lena left, Amara and Jared sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what had just happened settling around them. She's incredible, Jared said finally. So mature, so thoughtful. She is, Amara agreed. But this is still a lot for her to process. We need to be patient. Jared nodded. Whatever she needs, however long it takes. They were interrupted by the ringing of Jared's phone. It was Marcus. Turn on the news, his lawyer said without preamble. Channel 4 now. Amara found the remote and switched on the television. The screen showed a press conference in progress. District Attorney Collins standing at a podium, microphones clustered in front of him, filing a formal complaint with the Judicial Ethics Committee regarding Judge Amara Wells's failure to disclose a personal relationship with defendant Jared Langston. Evidence suggests that Judge Wells knowingly concealed this relationship when she was assigned to Mr. Langston's case, only recusing herself after the first hearing. He's moving faster than we anticipated, Jared said grimly. On screen, Collins continued. Furthermore, we have reason to believe that Mr. Langston and Judge Wells have a child together, a fact that makes her failure to recuse herself immediately all the more concerning. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. He mentioned Lena. He actually brought her into this publicly. This case raises serious questions about judicial integrity, Collins was saying. The public deserves to know that our courts are free from personal bias and hidden relationships. A reporter called out a question. District Attorney Collins, have you spoken with Judge Wells about these allegations? I met with Judge Wells this morning to discuss my concerns, Collins replied smoothly. She declined to address them substantively, which leaves me no choice but to pursue this matter formally. That's a lie, Amara said, her voice tight with anger. He gave me no opportunity to address anything. He came in, made his accusations, and left. The press conference continued, with Collins carefully framing his actions as a reluctant but necessary defense of judicial integrity, while implying that both Amara and Jared had acted improperly. When it was over, Jared turned off the television. Elena's article won't run until tomorrow. Collins got ahead of us. He mentioned Lena, Amara repeated, still in shock. He dragged my child into this publicly. We'll fight this, Jared promised. Collins has overplayed his hand. Using a child for political gain won't play well with the public or with the ethics committee. Amara's phone rang, her court administrator calling to inform her that in light of the public allegations, she was being placed on administrative leave pending the ethics investigation. After hanging up, she looked at Jared, her expression devastated. They've suspended me, effective immediately. Before Jared could respond, they heard a small voice from the hallway. Mom, why was that man on TV talking about you? And why did he say Jared is my dad? Lena stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. She had heard everything. Amara went to her daughter immediately, kneeling to her level. Oh, sweetie, that man is someone from work who's trying to cause trouble, but don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Are you in trouble because of me? Lena asked, tears forming in her eyes. No, absolutely not, Amara insisted, pulling her into a hug. None of this is your fault. It's grown-up stuff that has nothing to do with you. Jared approached cautiously, kneeling beside them. Your mum is right, Lena. This is about me and some mistakes I made in my business. Not about you. Lena looked between them, clearly unconvinced. The man said you and Mum have a child together. That's me, isn't it? That's why he was talking about us. Amara and Jared exchanged a helpless glance. Lena was too smart to be fooled. 5 simple reassurances. Yes, Amara admitted finally. He was talking about us, but that doesn't make any of this your fault. You are the most wonderful, perfect part of our lives. Then why is everyone so upset? Lena's voice was small, frightened. Jared took a deep breath. Because sometimes, Lena, grown-ups don't handle things the right way. I made mistakes in my business. Your mom and I made mistakes in how we handled meeting each other again. And that man on TV is using those mistakes to try to make us look bad. But we're going to fix it, Amara added firmly. Together. Lena looked at Jared, studying his face. If you're really my dad, will you help Mom? She looks scared. The simple question, with its profound trust, hit Jared like a physical blow. This was what being a father meant, not just fun dinners and presents, but being there when it mattered, protecting his family. Yes, Lena, he promised. I will help your mom, and I will help you. That's what fathers do. They protect their family. Are we a family now? Lena asked, looking between them. Amara and Jared exchanged a glance, one filled with shared purpose and unexpected connection. Yes, Amara said softly, we are. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, press statements, and private family moments. Elena's article ran the day after Colin's press conference, presenting a more balanced view of the situation, but the damage had been done. The story had captured public attention, with opinions divided on whether Amara had acted improperly or whether Collins was pursuing a vendetta. Jared's arraignment was postponed while his legal team filed motions arguing that Collins had exhibited bias and inappropriate conduct in his handling of the case. They specifically cited his use of a minor child in public statements as evidence of his lack of professional judgment. The Judicial Ethics Committee began their investigation into Amara's actions, interviewing her colleagues and reviewing court records. Throughout it all, she maintained that she had not immediately recognized Jared in court and had recused herself as soon as she did. Without evidence to the contrary, the committee had little to go on beyond Colin's suspicions. At home, Amara and Jared focused on Lena, creating as much stability as possible in the midst of the chaos. Jared visited daily, gradually taking on more parental responsibilities, helping with homework, attending Lena's piano recital, reading bedtime stories. Lena, with the remarkable resilience of children, adapted to the new family structure more easily than they had feared. She had questions, of course, and occasional moments of confusion or anger, but having both parents actively involved in her life seemed to provide a security that outweighed the disruption. 3 weeks after Colin's press conference, the tide began to turn. A whistleblower from the prosecutor's office came forward with emails showing that Collins had been investigating Amara personally for months, long before Jared's case came before her. The emails suggested a personal grudge stemming from a case where Amara, as judge, had ruled against Collins, questioning his office's evidence-gathering methods. The revelation shifted public opinion dramatically. What had looked like a principled stand for judicial integrity now appeared to be a calculated attack, motivated by personal animosity. The fact that Collins had used a child as leverage in this vendetta particularly outraged the public. 2 days later, the Judicial Ethics Committee issued their preliminary findings, concluding that while Judge Wells should have disclosed her past relationship with the defendant more promptly, there was no evidence of deliberate concealment or impropriety. They recommended that her administrative leave be lifted, with a formal caution about disclosure protocols going forward. That same day, the district attorney's office announced that Collins had been removed from Jared's case and that they were reviewing the charges in light of potential prosecutorial overreach. The evening after these announcements, Jared, Amara, and Lena celebrated with ice cream sundaes in Amara's apartment. As Lena happily constructed an elaborate dessert with multiple toppings, Jared and Amara shared a moment of quiet relief. "It's not over yet," Amara cautioned. "The ethics committee still has to issue their final report." "But we've weathered the worst of it," Jared replied. "Together." Amara nodded, watching Lena concentrate on placing chocolate sprinkles in a perfect circle around her ice cream. "Yes, we have." After Lena was in bed, Jared and Amara sat in the living room, talking quietly about the future. His legal case was still pending, though with Collins removed there was discussion of a fair plea agreement that would avoid prison time. "I've been thinking," Jared said, "about what happens next. For us." "Us?" Amara raised an eyebrow. "You, me and Lena, our family." Jared leaned forward. "I know we've been focused on getting through this crisis, on introducing me to Lena as her father, but I can't help thinking about what could be possible." "Jared," Amara began, her tone cautious. "I'm not asking for anything right now," he assured her quickly. "I know we have a long way to go. Trust needs to be rebuilt. You have every reason to doubt me after what happened 8 years ago." "Then what are you saying?" "I'm saying that these past few weeks, as difficult as they've been, have also shown me what matters. Being with you and Lena, facing challenges together, building something real." He took a deep breath. "I don't want to win you back, Amara. I want to earn my place, if there's still a place to earn." Amara was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. The words echoed in her mind, not winning but earning, not taking but giving. It was a different Jared who sat before her now, one who had been tested and had chosen family over freedom, love over ambition. "There might be," she said finally, "but it will take time." "Time is something I'm willing to give," he replied, "now that I know what I almost lost forever." 2 months later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Amara stood by the window of her apartment, watching Jared and Lena in the park across the street. They were flying a kite, a complex dragon design that Jared had helped Lena build from a kit. As the colorful creation soared against the blue sky, Lena's laughter carried up to the window. "Aunt." Teresa joined Amara, passing her a cup of coffee. "They look good together," she observed. "They do," Amara agreed. "It's like they've been making up for lost time." "And what about you and Jared?" Teresa asked directly. "You've been spending a lot of time together, and not just because of Lena." Amara smiled slightly. "We're finding our way. Slowly." The truth was more complex than she could easily explain. The past 2 months had brought changes she hadn't anticipated, not just Jared's growing relationship with Lena, but the rekindling of feelings, she thought, long buried. They had been dating cautiously, rediscovering each other as the people they had become, not just the young lovers they once were. Jared's case had been resolved with a plea agreement, a substantial fine and community service, but no prison time. He had used the opportunity to restructure his business, focusing on affordable housing projects rather than luxury developments. Amara had returned to the bench, her reputation somewhat bruised but ultimately intact. Collins had been reassigned to the white-collar crimes division, away from high-profile cases, and Lena had blossomed with the addition of her father in her life. The initial confusion had given way to genuine connection. Jared had proven himself consistent, patient, and deeply committed to being the father she deserved. "Mom! Dad! Look how high it is!" Lena called from the park, waving excitedly. Amara raised her hand in acknowledgement, her heart catching at the word Dad, now spoken with such natural ease. "You should go join them," Teresa suggested. "I'll finish making lunch." Minutes later, Amara crossed the street to the park. Jared spotted her coming and smiled, that same smile that had captured her heart in law school, but now tempered with maturity and genuine warmth. "Mom," Lena called. "Dad let me fly it all by myself. Want to try?" "Sure," Amara said, taking the string Lena offered. The kite tugged strongly, alive with the wind, as the three of them stood together, heads tilted. To the sky, Jared's hand found Amara's. She didn't pull away. "Thank you," he said quietly, just for her to hear. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance, with both of you." Amara looked at him, really looked at the man he had become. Not the ambitious, sometimes selfish law student, not the wealthy, disconnected businessman, but a father, a partner. Someone who had faced his mistakes and chosen to be better. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she said softly. "Even us." Lena tugged at their hands. "Can we have ice cream after lunch? Dad promised we could if the kite flew really high." "Did he now?" Amara raised an eyebrow at Jared, who shrugged unapologetically. "Ice cream seems appropriate for such a successful kite flight," he defended. Amara laughed, a free, genuine laugh that surprised even herself. "Ice cream it is, then." As they walked back toward the apartment building, Lena between them holding both their hands, Amara felt a sense of rightness she hadn't expected to find. Their path hadn't been easy or straight. There had been pain, separation, misunderstanding. But here they were moving forward together. A family created not just by biology but by choice, by forgiveness, by love that had survived abandonment and rediscovered itself in the most unexpected circumstances. The future was still uncertain in many ways, but one thing was clear. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as a family. That night, after Lena was asleep, Jared and Amara sat on her small balcony, looking at the city lights. They had been talking about practical things, schedules, Lena's upcoming school events, the logistics of their evolving family arrangement. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken eventually by Jared. "I've been thinking about getting a place nearby," he said. "Close enough that I could be part of Lena's daily life, but still giving you and her the space you're used to." Amara nodded. "That makes sense. There's a building 2 blocks over with. An apartment for sale. 3 bedrooms, one for me, one for Lena when she stays over, and one I could use as a home office." "You've thought this through," Amara observed. "I've had to," Jared replied with a small smile. "I'm a planner now. No more impulsive decisions." Amara turned to look at him directly. "And what are you planning for us, Jared? Beyond co-parenting?" "Lena." The question hung in the air between them, the one they had been circling for weeks. "What I'm planning," he said slowly, "is to be patient, to show you every day that I'm not the man who left you, to build something real and lasting, if you're willing." He took her hand gently. "I love you, Amara. I never stopped. But I know I have to earn back your trust." Amara looked down at their joined hands. "When you left," she said quietly, "I thought I would never recover. And then Lena came, and she became my whole world. I built walls to protect us both." "I know," Jared said softly, "and I respect those walls. But," Amara continued, meeting his eyes, "these past months have shown me something I didn't expect." "What's that?" "That sometimes walls that protected you can also keep out the good things, the healing, the possibility of joy." She squeezed his hand. "I'm not ready to say I love you again, not yet, but I'm ready to see where this path leads us." Jared's face softened with emotion. "That's all I can ask for, a chance to walk that path together." As the night deepened around them, they sat in comfortable silence, hands still joined. There were no guarantees, no certain happy endings. Life had taught them both that lesson all too well. But there was hope. There was Lena. And there was the possibility that sometimes love finds its way back, stronger, wiser, and more enduring than before. For now, that possibility was enough. The end.